I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 141. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Time is flying. And I just saw a post, actually on the 1st, one of my clients posted on Instagram, and it's an image that says February, chapter 2 of 12. And I thought that was so beautiful, such a beautiful way to think about it. I've never thought of the months as chapters of the year, but that's kind of cool. My chapters are quarters. I lead people through quarterly chapters. We have 4 chapters in a year. But I do like that, the idea of every month is a new chapter. So if we are in chapter 2, that means we are in the middle of quarter 1 of the year. And I thought today's podcast would be timely for many of you because we're going to talk about numbers and about math today. The reason I wanted to do this is because, number one, it stems perfectly from the podcast that I released last week, which was about the results cycle. You should definitely go check it out. This, I think, will help bring a full circle for some of you on like, where do numbers fit into this results cycle business? So we'll talk about that. And then the second thing is, many of you through conversations I've had are starting to hit a mode where there's a little more anxiety, a little more mental drama, so to speak, about what is happening so far this year. Some of you are really pleased with what's happening this year, but there's something that is worrying you, something you've been wanting to get done and you haven't started it yet, or the numbers aren't where you wanted them to be for the quarter yet. And so there's a little bit of anxiety for some of you, straight up freak out. But there's this underlying unhelpful feeling state that you're tolerating. And it's because you're not looking at the math, basically. We're going to talk about that today. That's one of the reasons, is that you probably aren't focusing on the numbers in a way that's helpful, if you're even focusing on them at all. The point of today's podcast, I really wanted to make sure that you guys understand when I say facts, not feelings, I freaking mean it. Facts, not feelings. It cuts through the noise of so much crap that happens in our head about what is going on if you just focus on facts, not feelings. Another way I say this is numbers, not hunches. Another thing that I think about is, where do you have control? Take control where you have control. And sometimes the numbers reveal that so clearly, because you'll look at certain things in the numbers and you'll realize, okay, to affect this number, I don't have control over these things, but I do over this. I'm going to go all in on this one thing that's going to help affect this number. So it helps you get clear about what can you do in order to get to where you want to get to. And it does come down to numbers. Another side note for any of you out there who don't like to look at the numbers and you're kind of okay with that. Yeah, you look at the numbers every so often. You kind of know what's going on, but generally speaking, you're not a numbers person in your business and you prefer it to be that way. You are doing yourself a disservice. This is not a big skill you have to learn. It's just a willingness to get your head out of the sand and constantly be looking at the health of the business, which is the numbers. That totally is the numbers. And they don't always have to fall within perfect margins, but you do need to know what your numbers are, and you do need to know why they are that way to the best of your ability, and you affect them the way that you think that they should be affected to give you and your business the ultimate outcomes that you're desiring. So looking at the numbers is so important. And I know it's something that we all know we should do. I talk to clients all the time when I get on consult calls for people who want to join Mastery Group. I'll ask them to rate themselves. I have a whole process I go through to really learn about them. And one of the questions I ask is, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your satisfaction with the firm finances is one area that I ask them. Tracking is another area I ask them. Those are 2 different things. Then I ask them about planning and goals, looking forward. Sometimes what happens, it's all too often, is that they will give me a number higher than what it really should be. They are saying they're pretty satisfied with that area, but they can't tell me numbers. They're like, oh, well, I'd have to look that up. And it's kind of a big number. And there's no judgment at all about it, but it clues me into a missing link for so many people. And there's a few reasons why. Like, some people think it's going to be a bigger deal than what it is. It feels overwhelming to even step into that space. Some people don't want to know. They don't feel like it's going well, and they just are working really hard to try to get it good, and then they're going to look at all the numbers more intently. Some people, they have the best of intentions. They do know how, but they're so busy that they aren't making the time to do it. Whatever, right? There's so many different reasons why people may not be as in tune as they should be with their numbers. But listen to me. You own this business, and if you don't know what's going on under the hood, no one else will. And there will come a day that vehicle will break down on the side of the road, or some emergency will happen, and it's going to be not fun. And here's the other thing. Let's just say that never happens, which, if no one's paying attention, there's going to be a moment that it may not feel like life and death emergency, but it will be very inconvenient to learn about something that you weren't awake to prior. But let's just say nothing dramatic ever comes of that. Let's just say maybe for whatever reason you would be in that camp where you get to slip by. You don't know your numbers and nothing happens that's going to make you freak out. The other thing that will for sure happen is that you will have realizations along the way that do not please you. Because here's the deal. You own this business for a reason. And even if you are very altruistic in your thinking about owning that business and serving clients and serving the world, which, by the way, that's amazing. That's not what everybody has. And that's not why everybody starts a business. But if you have that, that's great. But you are limiting your capability to have the impact and the ripple effect in your own life beyond the firm, right? Your own life and in others' lives, if no one is really dialed in with the numbers. It just caps your ability. It limits you with what you can do. Whereas if you were awake the whole time and you were clued in, you could make decisions differently and you'd be more calm and more confident. It's almost like knowing the numbers. And when I say know the numbers, I don't mean you look at them in depth once a year, or even once a quarter is not enough. There needs to be a report that you can look at that has at least a few key numbers every single month, maybe more than that, depending on the number that you're looking at and what feels right and appropriate to you. But at least monthly, looking at your numbers, you can steer the ship just a degree differently because of that. Y'all know what happens when you turn a ship 1 degree. The trajectory is very different in the long run. It's the same thing. Not knowing your numbers is just not being awake at the wheel. There's an ignorance to it. And even if it's unconscious and you're not intentionally trying to not look at the numbers, I do want you to think about, where can you wake up? Where do you need to get organized so that you are given, even if you can have it given to you once a month, certain numbers? Maybe it's dropped into a spreadsheet for you by an assistant or by a bookkeeper. Maybe you do it. It doesn't matter, but you need to make a plan for how you're going to start looking every month at key numbers. At the very minimum, you guys, number of cases or matters open every month. Number of cases or matters closed, especially if you are contingency fee. And by the way, that's a hard number for people to get because their software basically matters or cases aren't closed out properly in the software. So you can't run a report for that. But that's fine. If that's you, then okay, you just need to make sure that there is a systematic way inside of your firm that cases or matters get closed in the system so that you can run that report if you ever want to. Okay, so open and closed, revenue for the month, gross revenue, and then expenses for the month. And I like to break down for my clients. I learned this from Brooke Lively of Cathedral Capital. She wrote the book Panic to Profit. That book, I love how she breaks it down, which is basically your expenses are broken into 2 categories. One is what you pay people. So one way to think about this is payroll, but if you're paying contractors, they also need to be in the people. So people, and then whatever is left over after you paid your people and your expenses, that is what's referred to as overhead. So knowing the amount of money, yes, that you're paying the people every month, and amount of money that is your overhead every month, but then figuring out what percentage of your revenue is each of those, that's a really helpful thing to know. Yeah, she gives great guides in her book. I highly recommend her book, Panic to Profit, like 6 key numbers I don't remember the rest of it, but Brooke Lively of Cathedral Capital. So I break it down like that for my members and clients. And then what's left after that is net profit. And we take a look at that percentage as well. If you could just do number of matters open, number of matters closed, then revenue for the month, gross revenue, then looking at the expenses side, breaking that up into two, which is people, what you pay your people, and then what's left over after that with expenses. That's your overhead. And then you'll be able to calculate your net profit because you can basically take the total expenses, people, and overhead, subtract that from the revenue, and then you know what your net profit is that month. Doing this month over month, and by the way, if you join Mastery Group, this is part, like you get a basic tracking template where you can do this. You can plug and play. And then I even have like a marketing tab on that spreadsheet that has you tracking leads and conversion and spend and acquisition cost, things like that are calculated. The reason I put this spreadsheet together is because many people don't know where to start. It's just not the game that they typically play, but yes, they want to do it, but it would take them so long to sit down and create a spreadsheet that was simple and concise and would make sense and easy for them to drop numbers into. And it doesn't take me long because this is my world. This is what I do all day, every day. Literally, you guys, this is what I'm in. Numbers and helping owners with their problems and celebrating their wins. That is my world. We take care of you if you come in. So come on in. Come and hang with us. Mastery Group is awesome. So to recap this portion of the podcast, I'm getting ready to move into a little bit of a different direction or come at this from a different angle. You need to know your numbers. You are the owner and you have to be a good steward of the business. If you are not a good steward of the business will not give back to you what you always hoped it would have. That's just not how this works. And even if it does give back to you, you are blind to what it could give back to you. Like there's more there if someone would just pay attention to this poor business of yours. I always think about how important it is to love your business. Really actively love your business, love the entity because it serves so many people. It provides you a life. It provides your team a space to work in. There's so many amazing things about your business and it is only exists because of you and what you put together. Your brain made this thing happen. Take care of it. Take care of it. And being aware of the numbers is one very meaningful way to take care of the business. Okay, I have to tell you guys, I just paused from recording this to go take a coaching call. And this is what came up in a couple of different ways. This came up on the coaching call, and the most notable of which this client was trying to decide what the focus was for February, like what they were going to get done in February. And she was really feeling pulled to get organized and get a rhythm going with managing her KPIs. And I was like, yes, I'm literally recording a podcast on this right now. I mean, this isn't uncommon, but it was a little crazy that I stopped recording this episode and that is what I went to her and we talked about. This is just validating that this needs to be talked about. This is for so many of you who are well-intended, great lawyers and not bad business owners, but this is just something that hasn't been dialed. It's time to get it dialed. It doesn't need to take long. And so here's what I told her real quick. I'm going to give you this and then I'm going to go back to what I was originally going to talk about in the podcast. Here's what I told her. It doesn't need to be a month-long focus. She's inside of Mastery Group, so she has access to the basic tracking template. She's going to get some help from her bookkeeper and admin support, and she's going to basically put it on them. Hey, I want this sheet filled out by X date every month, and I want to be notified when it's time for me to look at it monthly. And so she's going to get help being prompted and having the data put in so that she can make this go. So she really doesn't need to make this a focus all month. She just needs to put a few things in motion and have time set aside on her calendar to actually visit the numbers. It turned out that what she was thinking she would focus heavily on in February, it didn't need to be that. She's actually moving to something different that'll be more, the thing that she's moving to, that'll give her more leverage in the business. It's so funny. Sometimes we make these things bigger than they need to be. And that tracking thing, the KPI management that she wants to wrap her hands around, it won't take that much to get her hands wrapped around it. It's just putting a couple things into motion and scheduling the proper time to evaluate and look at the numbers. So glad that that's a focus for her this month. Doesn't need to be the heavy lifting. in terms of how she's spending her time on something that will really move the needle. The thing that she did land on will really move the needle for the business, and her KPI management is going to be taken care of. It's just so funny that I was recording this. I had to push pause and take a break to go do a coaching call. I was going to come back and finish this, and then look at that. Wow. Okay, so here's what we're going to dig into in the last part of this podcast. Last week, we talked about the results cycle. And I know, because I have been in this world long enough to understand that it's easy for some of you to think that what I presented last week, though maybe useful, a little fluffy, a little coachy, right? But here's the truth of it. If you actually do abide by and pay attention to those 3 control factors that I talked about, the numbers are a given. They are paid attention to, because that's the kind of action that you take when you are coming from a really healthy place in terms of how you're thinking and your perspective. And that offers you a really solid feeling state from which to make decisions on, which making decisions, by the way, is an action. And then the right action is taken from that place. It's when we get caught up in this low level thinking, I'm too busy, lie, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the space, I don't have the help, I don't have X, I don't have Y. That is all. You have to hear that thinking is not serving you. Even if you could prove it true, let's just say you could prove it true. It doesn't serve you to focus on those things. What serves you is a different perspective about that exact same set of circumstances, and you get to choose what that is. But it needs to be something that is actually more useful to you than something that's more victim-y, which is you're at the whim of the world, like you don't have control. That's just never true. It's really important that you understand that though it can seem a little fluffy, it isn't. The sooner that you take over those 3 control points that we went over last week, which was your perspective, your feeling state, and the actions that you take. Those are the 3 things. And those control points and taking control of those lends itself to facts, not feelings. It lends itself to the numbers and making sure that you are not just going on hunches, that you're going on data as much as possible. And that's you taking control where you can take control. That's an action, right? These are the kinds of things that you will naturally start to do instead of pushing and fighting your way to do these things. No, it will be a natural occurrence of the state that you're coming from, your perspective and the way that you're feeling. So that's why it's so important to be in tune with that, because that's where everything stems from. That's where your actions stem from. That's where your results stem from. And so it's important to be clued into your perspective, your thoughts, your thinking, your mental, the sentences that are running through your mind, basically, and the feeling state that it's creating, that your perspective creates a feeling state, and then the actions that you take from that feeling state. And so again, I will say, if you feel vague and confused, then you're going to take action that lines up with that. It's not clear action. You're going to do things, something over here and then something over there, and then put yourself back into the lawyering work. And then, you'll just bounce around. If you are thinking things and feeling things that are just crappy and negative, straight up negative, the actions you take aren't going to be on par with what you really want for yourself. And so you have to look at this part of you if you want full control. You can still take partial control if you're only focusing on actions, but you're looking at one slice of the pie and you're using one slice of the pie instead of using the whole pie to get where you want, which happens so much faster with so much more ease, more naturally, I would say. And just to clarify for anyone who might be thinking I mean one thing when I really mean another, when I say take full control, I mean full control over what you have control over. You can't control the world. You cannot control other people. You can only control you. You have certain control points. You can either, and there's 3 that I'm identifying for you, and you can either have an awareness about those, take advantage of those, use those, plug into those, stay awake to those, or you can just do one. And that's short-sighted. Like you're shortcutting yourself, you're shortcutting opportunities, you're shortcutting a different way to experience growth in your firm. Like it's not the best way to move forward is by only taking one control when you have access to 3. And when you are awake to the fact that you have all 3 to use, perspective, your feeling state, and the actions that you take, then the results that you create are in your favor and they happen more naturally. It's not that you can control every result, but you have a lot more control than what most of you are taking. And that's what I want to help people see. Okay, now this is a numbers podcast. I wanted to focus on numbers here so that you guys can start to see how I think about numbers and how my best clients think about numbers. And I watched the learning curve of this, and it's so natural to have a learning curve with it. So I wanted to spell it out here. You have to understand that businesses have flows. There's ebbs and flows, waxes and wanes, right? That's a part of a business. And when you get too myopic, you make the numbers short term mean something that they don't mean. You assign meaning to the fact that there is a month that dipped with consults, and you make it, there's some sort of anxiety and or panic that like, oh my God, what the heck? That is so unuseful. And this is where I'm talking about your perspective, the thoughts that you are thinking, and being deliberate with those. When you do have a dip in numbers of any sort, your thoughts about those numbers matter. Your perspective about those numbers matters, because it sets up this trickle effect that happens, this triggering effect. If you think things like, oh my God, what is happening? There's like a panic and anxiety that sets in, if there's any flavor of that kind of thinking around the numbers. And then from that panic or anxiety place, the action is lower quality than if you were calm and confident. So a lot of this stuff that I've talked about with results cycles, when we talk about the numbers, it's training your brain to be more objective and to look more objectively at things so that there isn't all this banter in your brain about making the numbers mean something. It's math. You have to figure out the equation. You have to figure out the math, and you have to figure out what levers you can pull that will affect it this way and that can do this. And that is not as easy. It doesn't come to us as easy. What's easier, which is more indulgent, once you have an awareness about it, it's indulgent to start going into the place of making the numbers mean something about your future or about yourself or about what's possible for the business, any of that, or about what this means for the next 2 months. Like any sort of catastrophizing or worrying or anxiety, future tripping about the numbers and what you make that mean is all optional, and it isn't helpful. It works against you. And that is a perfect example of your perspective and how everything trickles down from there. So when you have the numbers in front of you, which are super important, this is where you can start to really train your brain the fastest, in my opinion, because you have a fact in front of you. This is such a great exercise. You get to assign meaning or not to that number. And you assigning meaning to it, any emotions that come with it, any thoughts that come with it by looking at that number is actually an error that needs to be course corrected. So even when, I'm using the example of having anxiety if you see numbers dip, there are times where people will see their numbers for whatever reason spike, and they will also assign meaning to the spike. And so then there's this emotion that's like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And then they just start future tripping with the spike. They start making plans and thinking through what that means for these months and these months, whatever. If that's the route you take when you see a number that spikes, that is also actually not helpful. Now, it's okay to celebrate a number, like high five, hell yeah, let's keep going. If you see a number that spikes, it's like, let's figure this out. Like, how did that happen? I want to know how that happened. I want to know what contributed to that and study it and figure out how to keep applying that moving forward. Now, that's a really good use of your thinking, is like, after you high five and say yes and you celebrate, put your head down and look at that stuff and figure some things out so that you can replicate that moving forward. It's like learning from the win, instead of just like flying high emotionally, because when you're flying high emotionally, you don't get much done. When you're flying really low emotionally, you don't get much done. It's this calm center. It's like this calm confidence. That's the place you really want to shoot for the majority of the time as a business owner. And the more that you can do that, the more that you're tuned in with, okay, that's the results cycle. Is my perspective creating an emotional state on one end of the spectrum or the other? Okay, good to know. How can I bring myself back down to just calm confidence? That is what we're shooting for here. So when I look at this number, what do I need to think in order to create calm confidence or a sense of certainty about myself as an owner and belief in myself that I'm going to take this and run with it? I'm going to learn the lessons from it. There's a narrative that will create calm confidence, and there's a narrative that will create excitement that's not really useful to production. And there's a narrative that will create this gray, dark anxiety, almost crippling. And that also clearly you don't take good action from. Your center is this calm confidence. And that's why I love numbers, is because it brings you back to the calm confidence. If you are really working at this and you want to develop yourself as an owner, look at numbers and ask yourself what you're making that mean. What do you think about that number? And the more neutral you can get, the more objective of a place you are looking at that number from, which allows you to be much more productive and take much stronger action that will carry you much further. And that kind of action will spit you into high result cycles over and over and over and over again. And so it is this point. And when you have numbers, and if you look at them consistently, it is a constant practice that you'll get better and better and better at experiencing that feeling state of calm confidence or certainty, or maybe there's another word in there that you would put in, but it's this inner strength. It's this knowing. It's this unaffected emotional place by the number that you want to get to, because it's so much more of a powerful place to come from with any action that you take. So that's what we're shooting for. And that's why I feel like it's so important that you guys really get this result cycle concept. Again, I'm inviting you to the class. It's February 18th, and you can go to velocitywork.com/results to get in. We can dig in together on this, and I'll show you visuals and answer questions and make sure that everybody feels really good. Like they can walk away from that class having a greater awareness about themselves and be able to move forward in all the right ways. So in the end, I really want you to understand what I just explained, but I also want you to understand a few facts. Businesses have flows. If your business is not a hockey stick up and to the right, nothing has gone wrong here. That's not normal. And if that is your business, good for you, but that's not normal. Nothing has gone wrong if that's not the way your business looks. If the amount of money that is being spent every month towards people in your firm, so payroll and contractors, is outside of what is recommended by the experts, it isn't helpful to think that something's gone wrong. It's helpful to think nothing's gone wrong here. And if that's the case, then now what? You can look at this more objectively and make some decisions from that instead of making it mean something it doesn't mean. And when I say mean something, does it mean that maybe things weren't looked at properly and evaluated properly before you committed to spending that money? Maybe. But what it doesn't mean is that you suck as an owner, or that you're doomed, or that you're going to have to like crush somebody's life now because you got yourself into this pickle. And like none of that is helpful. That narrative, it happens. It's so common that it happens. It's a part of being a human, but you can train your brain to start to look at things more objectively and choose on purpose what you want to think about some of the things that are in front of you, the numbers that are in front of you, and from there make decisions, and trying to do that more from a calm place and a place of confidence about the decisions that you're making. And that all happens because you're in a more neutral place when you look at the numbers. If you don't have the number of cases coming through the door every month that you want to see, or you're not even close to your goal, or for some reason they've dipped, looking at that number, you get to decide what you're going to think about that. When I'm looking at numbers, and the way I encourage all my clients to look at numbers is when you look at that number, and if at first it's disappointing, I want you to look at it and realize that your disappointed feelings about that, you can make space to take a breath and really feel that disappointment. But then after that, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Your disappointed feelings don't help the situation. Your elated feelings about a number don't help the situation. They aren't useful to the growth of the business or to the growth and development of you as the owner of the business. So going back to the cases open, if you see a number and you feel deflated, what are you thinking about that number that's making you feel deflated? It isn't the number that makes you feel deflated. It's your perspective. It's your thoughts about the number. So once you can identify what's your opinion about that number, that's another way to ask to get the thought out of your head. Then you can have a look at that and say, is that worth thinking? Can I flip that script a bit? not to be positive Polly, but just to be so it doesn't like drag me through the muck emotionally and mentally and take up space and create anxiety. What else can I think that's also true? It doesn't matter. That's the other thing too. It doesn't matter. Even if you feel like you could prove that the way that you're thinking about the number is true, if it doesn't serve you, it doesn't matter. You don't need to be right. You need to be effective. Numbers help you do that in a really great way, but it's because when you start looking at the numbers and you understand what result cycles are like and where you have control points in the result cycles, and you can kick yourself into a high result cycle, or you can be spit out into a low result cycle. And once you understand that, it doesn't matter about being right or wrong and flexing opinions one way or the other internally. This is probably all happens internally. It's about being as objective as possible and thinking deliberately, on purpose, choosing a perspective that will serve you in the business instead of hold you in the business back. Okay, everybody. Facts, not feelings. It's so helpful to kick you into high result cycles, especially if you're open to training your brain on how to deal with facts, not feelings. Have a beautiful week, everyone. I will see you here next Tuesday or in the class. Come to class, come to class. It's going to be great. velocitywork.com/results. Hopefully I'll see you there. Have a good week, everyone. Bye-bye. Hey, I am teaching a masterclass on February 18th. Are you coming? Come hang with me to learn about result cycles and kick yourself into a high result cycle. Go to velocitywork.com/results to register.